We're continuing the alphabet series, and today we're talking about letter P.
That's right. We are continuing our alphabet series and continuing on with the letter P.
That's right.
It's our Sesame Street series, you know.
This
list is brought to you by the letter P.
Called it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, that's something right there.
Well, it's a nice way. Some people ask about the series, and it's a nice way because we have to talk about a different 10 games every single list. So by the end of it, we're going to talk about 200 or so different games. I think it's really, really cool.
I think it's a great chance to highlight some games that maybe don't get talked about as often.
Totally.
And that's why we've been doing it. So we are to P now. We're kind of in the second half of the alphabet. So let's get right to it. Number 10 is one of the most unique games we've ever played. This is Photosynthesis. This is a game where you are the forest, I guess, is what you're playing as. You're a species of tree. And you are trying to grow trees in this central board that everyone is also trying to grow their trees in, and growing in such a way that you are capturing the light of the sun as it moves around the board and kind of circumnavigates the forest. You're trying to make sure that your trees are not in the shadow of other trees, so you can collect light points, which are your energy, which are essentially your action, your resources you can use to power up your actions of growing trees, spreading seeds around, pulling trees off of your player board, and things like that. We love the kind of cutthroat nature of this game because it's tough out there in the forest. You really got to stretch tall to, catch the light and stuff. And if I'm building all these big old trees and stuff, they're going to cast shadows and, kind of hamper my opponents and stuff. But there's also this thing of the sun going all the way around the board. And as you place your trees, hopefully strategically, you might end up putting yourself in the shadow. And so it's kind of like trying to balance that of where and how do I place on the board, the deeper, kind of more toward the center of the forest board you are, the kind of richer the soil, and when you eventually fell your trees, the more points you'll generate. So you really want to get to the middle of everything, but then there's maybe more chances to be, have shadows cast on you. There's a lot of really interesting things. And I think kind of like nature, it can be pretty cutthroat and brutal.
Our number 9 game that starts with P is going to be Patchwork. Patchwork is an outstanding game. It's sold gangbusters. There's a whole bunch of different versions, and that's because it's just very, very good. Patchwork is a game where you're trying to make a patchwork quilt. You will do so with these polyomino tiles, which are all different patches of just various materials and stuff like that. So you're making a cool patchwork quilt. And this is a 2-player game, and it's really, really cutthroat, which I think is hilarious considering the theme. But maybe quilting circles are super cutthroat. Who knows? If anyone's out there as a quilter, let us know down in the comments. But nonetheless, this is a game where you're managing time, currency, and space. The space is your quilt. You only have a 9x9 grid, so you can't just build willy-nilly. You're trying to build in a smaller area and trying to make things fit together really well. You are doing with money because money is buttons in the game, which is super cute. But your buttons are also your points, but your buttons is how you pay for these patches. So that's a really hard balance. And then what you're really balancing, in my opinion, is time, because every time you pick a patch, the patches are all in one big circle. You can pick one of the 3 patches in front of the little pawn. When you pick that patch is going to have a certain cost in buttons, hilarious. And then it's also going to have a certain amount of time that it takes to sew into your patch. And so basically on the time track, if this takes 4 time, you're going to move forward 4. And in this game, whoever is behind on the time track, it's their turn. So if I go forward 5 and Mike now is 4 or 5 spaces behind me, he maybe will take a patch that only gives him 2 time. Well, guess what? He's still behind. He gets to go again. Then he takes a patch that's only 1 time. Guess what? He gets to go again. And so there's this really interesting push and pull with the game with the currency, the time, and the space, because at the end of the game, every blank spot on your board is -2 points. In this game, I'm only really trying to get 0 points. I'm just trying to break even because I'm not very good at this game. But nonetheless, I love Patchwork. I think it's absolutely outstanding. It's just so tactical and mean and fun, and it's just really, really good.
Now, I don't know how you have a P list and not have Power Grid on here, because this is such a classic game. But here it is. Power Grid is one that we really enjoy. It's one of those things that like we didn't play for the longest time. And then when we did, we're like, oh, this is a classic for a reason. I get it. Totally makes sense. It's really good. It's got, you know, that kind of good blend of simple mechanisms. You're going through and kind of bidding on these power stations each round, and you are hoping to build out onto this map, whatever map you have. And there's been a bunch of them over the years. Say the US, for example, is one of the ones in the base game, and you're trying to move out into different regions and be able to power as many houses across the country as possible. That's your ultimate goal. So you're going to have these different power plants that can, you know, essentially house and powers certain types of resources in certain amounts, and you are trying to buy and manage your funds and stuff to get the right resources into your power plants, powering up, you know, all the houses that you've built onto the map. So it's really this kind of economic math puzzle game, and it can get quite mathy in terms of how much money you're spending, how much money you're producing, and things like that. But it really is about managing those funds and how, you know, efficient can you be. You know, can you get better resources? At the beginning of the game, coal is super cheap, but as the game goes, the coal market might get, you know, kind of depleted. Now coal is very expensive, but maybe, you know, nuclear energy or trash, recyclable energy has become more available. So there's a cool thing of kind of simulating markets as well. Again, as soon as we played it, we're like, this makes total sense. Classic for a reason. It's great. Now, Friese usually does, you know, F games, and in German, this is an F game, but for this list, it's a P game.
Shouts out to Aldi and Lincoln because they're the ones who showed us Powerline. Powerline is a really, really great game where you are building out power lines, I guess, across your little land or whatever. And this game is brutal. But here's the thing, and one of the reasons why I really, really like it is because it's like, it's brutal to everyone at the same time. It's not like, oh man, I'm getting really shafted by da-da-da-da in the game. No, it's terrible for everyone, but that's what makes it fun, dang it. And so this is a game where on your board, you have all these kind of like, again, spots for power lines, and they're gonna have different pip values on them, like 6, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 5, whatever. And you're basically gonna have to fill out these power lines from one direction, so going this way or going this way. And to put a piece down to build that part of the power line, you're gonna have to have a die with that pip value on it. So if it goes 6, 3, 2, you have to have a 6, a 3, and then a 2. And you can work on different power lines at different times, so it's not like you have to finish one and then start another one. So you have a little bit of flexibility, but not a lot, because the person who is rolling the dice, they're gonna roll all these dice, and all the dice have colors. And those colors are gonna be put in a very specific order. And you have to, if you're gonna take these dice, you're gonna use these dice because everyone is using them, you have to use them from one end going into the other end, or from the other end going to the other end. I said that very badly, but I think you understand what I'm saying. You basically have to pick one end of the dice, and you have to use the dice in the order they are to the other end, but you can choose either side. So you're like, oh my gosh, I really need this 4, but the 4 is in like the middle of this pack of dice. So, okay, so I'll spend the 6 and the 3 and I'll put them over here, and then I can use the 4, and then I can use the other 4 over here. And you're basically trying to like fill out these power lines based off of the dice. But again, the dice are in a specific order, and you have to use them in that order. So it becomes this really tough, really brutal game where everyone is just kind of always mad at whoever's rolling the dice. Whenever you're the dice roller, everyone is pissed off at you. But then they get to do the dice roller next, and then everyone's pissed off at them. So it's a real joint. Everyone's coming together, basically. It's really, really tough, but it's just fun. It's a fun puzzle to try and figure out like, oh, how do I want to do this? Oh man, okay, so I'm gonna sacrifice, I'm gonna kind of blow off this 6, I'll just put it over here because I really need this 3, 2, 1 or whatever. It's just really, really, really good. We played this at BGG Con with Lincoln, Aldi, I think Nikki was there, and it was, gosh, it was a good time. And so we actually went and picked it up at Gen Con last year because we liked it so much. We had never even heard about it. It's really, really good.
Next up is The Pursuit of Happiness. This is essentially the game of life turned into a worker placement Euro game. It's that kind of same idea of you are living through a life, collecting life experiences, and trying to generate as much long-term happiness as possible. Those are your points, which already, I think is the best goal ever. Like, if we're not aiming for happiness in life, I don't know what we're doing. So that's a beautiful reminder of how to live your life. And in this game, you are using your workers, which are units of time. You are literally deciding how to spend your time in your, days and years here on Earth as you go from being, a young adult on through old age. And you can kind of do whatever. There are jobs available that you can work that are going to spend certain resources. We're going to produce money, which are really good for you if you want to, get into collecting comic books or something, or getting a boat. There's all these different kind of items and activities you can do that are usually going to require money. There's kind of projects you can undertake. You can, learn a skill, get into drama, stuff like that, and kind of invest your time there and kind of work on these different levels of this skill you're doing. There are, you can get married, you can do all sorts of stuff, but everything's going to come down to taking up some amount of your time. If you have a really high level job, you're the president or whatever, it's going to take up more time than just working, an entry level job at some office. And so how do I balance that? What are the pros and cons of all these different directions I can go? And I think they really do a good job of, making a simulation for life. It really does come down to how you spend your time. What's that balance point? What's important to you? Those are all things that we deal with on the daily basis. And here you get a chance to do that, but also have a crazy life, have a motorcycle gang or whatever, get married 3 times or whatever you want to do. You can do it in the game. And I just enjoy trying to make this like strange kaleidoscope of life, which is ultimately probably kind of just what life looks like. They're typically kind of strange kaleidoscopes of things. But it's really, really fun. You're trying to avoid stress, which is always a good goal. You eventually will die in the game, and just, again, hopefully your legacy is that you are a really happy person. So it's one that we really enjoy every time. That's the pursuit of happiness.
Man, oh man, do I love Pagoda. It's just so darn good. Unfortunately, Pagoda is not super available right now. I wish Pegasus, Spiele, or AEG, please bring it back. It's a really great 2-player game where you are building up pagodas. Pagodas, these very tall buildings you see in like Southeast Asia a lot and things. Really, really beautiful buildings. It's you're building up these pagodas. You're gonna have kind of like a depot in the middle, and they're gonna have spots for like 6 or 7 different pagodas. And on your turn, you're gonna be playing out these colored cards, and these cards are going to allow you to do a couple different things. You can either play a card, let's say a green card. If you put a green card, you can put out a green pillar. If you play 2 green cards, you put out 2 green pillars, a green and a purple, green and purple pillars. Once there are 4 pillars on like a little depot spot, you then can put a floor on there. And again, you want to turn in like a blue card to put a blue floor there. Okay, great. And then you can start building on the next level. Once there's 4 pillars, you can put a floor on there. Then you start building on the next level, and you're building up and up and up like a pagoda. It's really, really cool because this game is all about tactics, because on your turn, you can only play, I believe, 3 cards, if I remember correctly. It's either 3 or 4. So here's the thing. If you play, let's say there's already 1 pillar on like the 3rd floor. I then play 3 pillars. My turn is done. Mike goes, cool, thanks. Boom, I'm gonna play a blue, put a floor on there, and I'm gonna start building on the next level with my different columns, my pillars. And the reason why that matters is because the higher the pagoda is, the more points those columns are worth. If you're on the ground floor, they're just worth 1 point each. If you're on the 2nd floor, they are worth 2 each. If you're on the 3rd floor, there are 3, 4, and then 4 is the highest one. So what you don't want to do is you do not want to set up your opponents for really, really high scoring plays. Also, whenever you play a floor of a certain color, you will get the power of that color, and those powers will allow you to kind of break the rules. And each time you get a power, you can use it twice before it goes away, and you'll have to play another floor of that color to get that power back. So there's ways to kind of mitigate stuff and get around stuff, but it's this really interesting tactical game where you are building up these pillars, trying to score points, but also not trying to set up your opponent. It's really, really good, and I wish it would come back into print because it's been out of print for a while. And so if you ever find like a used copy somewhere, grab it. It's outstanding. I really, really love Pagoda. It's an outstanding 2-player game, and it's just really good, and I wish it would come back into print, please.
Now, we couldn't possibly make this list of P games without mentioning Pandemic. We have a Pandemic Iberia here, but really any Pandemic is totally great. Pandemic is what got us into the hobby. It was a game that we played way back when. It was our first exposure to a modern strategic board game. I had never played a cooperative board game before, didn't know those existed. Something that was on the scope of saving the world was like brand new to me. My friends had, had upgraded bits that they made themselves and stuff. And like, that was just mind blowing. It was so cool. The stakes were so high in the game that it really got us hooked. And we bought Pandemic well before, I would say, becoming true hobbyists and starting to collect games and stuff. We had Pandemic for a long time and played it because that first experience was so impactful. It was made so fun that it just left this lasting impression. And so of course we had to get that game, and like we are now here in our own studio filming something because of that game. So Pandemic is awesome. Again, Iberia is probably our favorite, but there's so many cool versions. There's ones about Star Wars now and stuff that use this kind of like Pandemic system. It's a cooperative game where you are taking on a role, going around kind of fending off diseases that are overrunning towns and trying to discover cures for these 4 diseases and stuff. And they have all sorts of different IPs now and things. It's just been a great game. It's gotten so many people into this hobby. It's truly an important game, I think, to consider. So had to have Pandemic on here.
I'm sorry, somehow Paint the Roses shows up on seemingly every single list we do. I don't know how it happens, but it always does. But nonetheless, we're talking about games that start with P, so Paint the Roses has to be there because I love Paint the Roses so much. Paint the Roses is very, very fun. This is a cooperative deduction game where you are in the Alice in Wonderland universe, and the Red Queen wants you to build her a beautiful rose garden. You are the gardeners, and the Queen wants her garden to look a very specific way, but she only told each of you like snippets of how she wants it to look. She goes, hey, George, I want red flowers next to yellow flowers. And she goes, hey, Mary, I want bushes that look like diamonds next to bushes that look like hearts. And so she's telling you all different things, and that's done through these whim cards. You basically, each player is gonna have a whim card. That whim card is gonna have something the Queen wants, like pink flowers next to yellow flowers, or clubs next to red, or something like that. And you then, on your turn, are going to put out a tile, and that tile is going to be a bush. The bush is going to be a suit of cards, clubs, diamonds, hearts, spades, and then it's also going to have a rose in the middle of 4 colors, yellow, purple, pink, and red. And when you put that down, you're basically going to put out your cubes onto that tile that was just placed, saying how many matches that placement makes for your whim. So if your whim is like yellow roses next to red roses, and you put down a yellow tile and there's 3 red roses next to it, you would put down 3 of your cubes, saying this made 3 matches for my whim. So then if there's anyone else who that tile placement made matches for, they would also put it on there like, ooh, Mary put 2 down there. Okay, that means this also was good for her. Okay. And then at the end of every turn, the group has to collectively guess on at least 1 whim. You obviously can't guess on your own because you know what it is, but everyone goes, okay, Nick just put down a tile with a yellow rose. There's 3 red roses next to it. Maybe his whim is yellow to red, yellow next to red. They officially guess that and go, yep, it was that. Boom, we're super smart. And so that's the crux of the game. And then you're basically trying to fill in the entire garden before the Queen tries to kill you. Because at the end of every turn, the Queen is going to move. And throughout the game, she's going to move faster and faster and faster. If she ever gets to you, she's going to chop your head off. It's gruesome. It's not that you don't see it happening, but you know what actually happened. But nonetheless, it's tough because anytime you guess wrong, the Queen moves double. And like I said, she's gonna move faster and faster and faster as the game goes on. So later in the game, if she moves double, you're almost assuredly dead. It's really, really fun. We found that we really like deduction games. We really like cooperative deduction games. And this one is just up there. It comes up a lot because it kind of hits a lot of different categories. It's beautiful, it's co-op, it's deduction. It's just really, really good. You can teach it to new players. I wouldn't necessarily say maybe it's not like a gateway game, but it's pretty darn close. It hits on every single level. I absolutely love Paint the Roses.
Number 2 is Potion Explosion. This is just a great, fun, tactile experience because you literally have marbles that are racing down these trays and you're picking marbles out of those trays and causing collisions and explosions as you try to make potions, which are going to, give you points as you kind of race to complete sets and things like that. And then the potions themselves are going to give you a one-time ability that will allow you to collect extra marbles, break some game rules and stuff like that. This is one that when I first heard about, I was just so intrigued by like again, this big display of marbles that you can pull from. And I was like, that's such a great toy factor. That's just so satisfying to like touch and play with. And again, kind of leveled up our understanding of like what games can be, what kind of things can games do and what pieces can they use, and showing a lot of creativity there. This is one where you're really rewarded for being clever because again, it all hinges on if I pull a marble out, say a red one, and then on either end of that red one were two of the same color, blue or black or yellow, and they collide now because the tray is going to slam them down. I get to collect all of those marbles as well. And if I pull those out and then two colors touch again, I get to pull those ones out. So you can get these heaps of marbles that you then can kind of put onto your potions, which are, your recipes. They need 2 blue, a yellow, and a black, and that might, make a certain types of potion. As you collect these potions, again, they'll give you a one-time ability. You can set collect by getting a bunch of different potions or getting a bunch of the same kind of potions. So it does a lot of kind of neat little things, little levers to pull that really always make you feel clever. Like you can do some really slick turns. And so that's something that's just always satisfying. It's always enjoyable to be able to put those things together. So Potion Explosion has just been one that's a long love of ours.
If you recently watched our top 100 games, I'm going to spoil it right now. My number 1 game is the Prodigals Club. So of course it had to be the number 1 on this list. It's not Mike's number 1 game. I don't know if it made his top 100. I don't think it did, but it's at least as of this time doing my top 100, it is my favorite game on the planet. I really, no, it's fine. I'm not even gonna say it's great. It's fine. I love Prodigals Club. It's incredible. This is kind of a sequel to Last Will. Last Will is kind of like Brewster's Millions, the board game, where you have like a rich uncle who died, and so you want their inheritance. Their inheritance is gonna go to whoever is the poorest of their like children, grandchildren, whatever. Whoever is the least wealthy will get the inheritance. So you're in Last Will, you're trying to blow all of your money and have none at the end of the game. It's a very fun, silly theme that's a really good time. The Prodigals Club is similar, but kind of takes it farther and is a decent amount heavier. Last Will is actually kind of like a medium weight game. Prodigals Club is a decent amount heavier, although it's not crazy heavy. But in this game, you are trying to lose all of your money. You are also trying to lose all of your friends, and you're also trying to lose an election. You're basically trying to be the worst person on the planet, but it's just in a very silly way. Like, so one way you can lose friends is you get a card that's like, you were rude at the restaurant, and so you're just being all loud and yelling all over the place, Blues Brothers style. And you're just making havoc for everyone there. And so that makes your social status go down. You lose some friends because of that. You're like, yeah, let's go. You go to the park and you're making some crazy speech and everyone's like, actually, I'm not going to vote for that guy. And you're like, yeah, that's right. And then you're like buying a horse for tons of money and then selling it for super cheap because again, you're trying to get rid of all your money. So this game is essentially 3 kind of mini games that make up one big game. And where the kicker of this game is, and one of the reasons why I find this game so compelling, is at the end of the game, you're gonna have a score in each of those areas, the friends, the votes, and then the money. Whatever your highest score in amongst those 3, that is your score for the game. And remember, high score is bad. You want no money, no friends, no votes. So if you have no votes, you have no money, but you still have like 20 friends, your score is 20. That's bad. So you have to do everything. It's really, really interesting. It's a tough game. About halfway through the game, you're always just like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna get this done? There's no way. There's no way I can lose all these votes. I can't do it. And you always end up pulling it out. There's always ways to do it. You always end up figuring out. It's just very, very satisfying. The theme is so funny and silly that I just love it, love it, love it. It's my favorite game. I don't know. I love it more than any other game. Right now, at least, I absolutely adore it. Prodigals Club, boop. I love you. So that was our top 10 games. To start with the letter P.
Some solid
This
ones in
this
there.
list was much longer than 10. There's some bangers.
I know. It's like not a letter
them.
you'd expect. You're like,
Yeah.
whoa, there's some like all-timers in there. So
Yeah, it
that's
really
cool.
is. So down in the comments below, let us know. A lot of people have been going along in this whole series, putting
Please
their
help us.
top games in there. So please put your top 10 games to start with the letter P. Next on is Q and probably R, and let's get right to it, eh?
Let's do it.